It's good?
Yeah, I don't even need any other food.
Now we know what the fuss is about. Hi, I'm Hannah.
And I'm Shay, and we're Dinner National.
Today we're making Lebanese food.
Lebanon might be the smallest country in the Middle East, but it makes a big splash in the culinary scene. Bordered by countries like Israel and Syria, of course it has a lot of influences coming from these spaces, but Lebanon has its own culinary gems, which we're about to explore today. One of the key Lebanese dishes, ask any Lebanese person, is kibbeh. So kibbeh is like a meatball that we're stuffing with meat. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a bit. And we're also gonna eat a Sayadieh, which is a Lebanese fish and rice dish, which is sure to impress your family and friends.
All right, and I'm gonna be making a tabbouleh salad, which is a classic Lebanese salad. It's super fresh, packed with parsley and tomatoes and lemon juice. It's so simple and so good. And I'm also gonna be making a yogurt dip called labneh, which is kind of seasoned with spices. I'll explain more about that later. So let's get started.
Kibbeh is sometimes called as a Lebanese meatball, but it's not quite a meatball. It's more like a croquette. Even though the filling inside and the casing outside are both made of meat, they're both spiced differently. So there's this textural variance and taste variance that comes with it. So it's not quite your ordinary boring meatball at all. Let's make some kibbeh. So as you can see, I have a skillet that's heating up on medium. So this is just one medium-sized white onion. I'm not trying to like really brown this, but I just want to cook it until it's a little bit softer, and then I'll add the beef in it. So lamb is actually pretty traditional, but you know how ground lamb is a lot more expensive? That's why I just bought ground beef instead. So I'm just gonna let this saute for about 5 minutes. I'm just gonna crumble up some lean ground beef. This is just about half a pound. So I've been stirring this for the past 5 minutes, taking care to break up the beef into smaller pieces. In go the spices. So I have about a quarter teaspoon of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of allspice, and the salt and the pepper. I have like about 1 teaspoon of salt and half a teaspoon of pepper. Half a teaspoon of SUMAC. So this was a new ingredient for me. It tastes kind of sour almost. It's really good. It's really fragrant. Try using it if you never have. Our filling is pretty much done, you guys. So I can just turn the burner off, and I'm just gonna add like a third of a cup of roasted pine nuts. And it's actually pretty nice. This is also like a new ingredient for me. I had never tasted pine nuts before. But if you don't want to buy these, you can just use like small pieces of walnuts instead. That's also fairly traditional. But if you can get the pine nuts, do. So I'm just gonna take this off of the heat and reserve it until I need it. See you in a bit. Let's get started with the casing. So for the casing here, we're going to blend up 1 onion. And to this, I'm going to add some bulgur. So if you don't know what bulgur is, it's just like cracked broken wheat that's broken into like really small fragments. 30 minutes before we used it, I just rinsed it out and soaked it in like about 2 cups of hot water. This is 1.5 cups of bulgur. So just to like rehydrate it a little bit. This is actually pretty full, huh? I'm gonna add the bulgur in batches because I'm gonna make sure it's a fine grind. And this is half a cup of mint. These are fresh mint leaves. Fresh because mine are a little bit old. They've been sitting in the fridge for like about 2 weeks. But yeah, not the dried kind. Use the dried kind if you have that, but maybe use a little bit less. Okay, so I'm just gonna blend this. I bet that looked real scary. So I've added the rest of the bulgur in here, and I'm gonna blend this for another 2 or 3 minutes. So I have a small blender. So I pulled out half of the bulgur onion mixture, and I added just half of my ground beef in here. I'm just gonna add about half of the spices I need for the filling entirely. So this is some allspice, quarter spoon of allspice, half a teaspoon of cumin. So I'm just gonna blend this, pull this paste out, and then blend the second half, basically following the same thing. So the bulgur mixture, the meat, and your spices. If you have a large enough food processor, obviously just do it in one go. Or you can also do it by hand, basically. Like smush it real good. All right, our meat has turned into a dough. I've never really seen meat turning into dough before, but as you can see, this is like a super pliable ball. I will confess that once we started to mix this whole thing, it seemed like a little bit wet. Maybe we just used like a really large onion, or our bulgur was a little bit wet. But in either case, I just added like a couple of tablespoons of all-purpose flour and kept it in the fridge. So yeah, kibbeh. I'm lightly oiling my palm to make ball rolling easy. In the beginning, I'm just gonna try and portion these into equal balls so then I can stuff them. But before that, let me just show you how to stuff a kibbeh. As you can see, my palms are oiled and I'm forming this meat into a ball. And once I do that, I'm just gonna flatten this out into like a bowl shape. Please make sure that this is not super thick, but you don't want it to be super thin either. I'm gonna grab some of the beef mixture that we sauteed up earlier with the onions and the spices, and then I'll encase this with the dough. Roll it into the shape of a football, mold it a little bit in your hands. Okay, now I'm gonna do the rest. See you in about 5 minutes. Okay, so that took a lot of teamwork and elbow grease, but we have our kibbeh formed. This is the second batch that you're seeing. We put the first batch in the freezer because it definitely looks a little bit wet still. We want to make sure that these don't fall apart and they firm up a little bit before we fry. So I'm just gonna keep it in the refrigerator until it's ready to cook. What I mean to say is like, don't put it in the freezer for too long because yeah. And I'll show you how to make the Sayadieh in the meantime. Like I mentioned earlier, the cuisine of Lebanon is heavily influenced by its neighbors. You would see that a lot of popular Lebanese dishes are also enjoyed in other parts of the Middle East. For example, shish tabouk, like you saw in our Turkey episode, or like hummus or baba ganoush, which we have briefly touched upon and will be touching upon in the rest of the season. So we decided to keep this as Lebanese as possible. Admittedly, there are other Lebanese dishes that are probably more popular than Sayadieh, but probably not very many main dishes that are as Lebanese as this. Lebanon is a coastal country, so it uses a lot of fish in its cooking. So what we have over here is about 500 to 600 grams of cod fish. Feel free to use any other white fish that you have available, but this is probably not a great recipe for something like salmon. I actually just pulled the cod out of the fridge and salted it. It's been about 10 minutes. I just wanted it to dry out a little bit, and now I'm going to flour my fish for frying. As you can see, I have cut up the cod into like kind of uniform pieces so that it fries evenly. There are some odds and ends that I actually collected into like a separate bowl, and I would be frying those in with the onions for some extra fishy flavor. So our oil is getting nice and hot, so I'm going to try and put the thicker pieces in first so that they cook evenly as compared to the thin ones. Nice fingers. So our oil is at about 350, which is kind of perfect for frying fish. So I'm gonna start with the thicker pieces of the fish because obviously we want them to be evenly cooked as compared to the skinnier ones. You should hear that sizzle because that means that the oil is hot enough. And we're not trying to cook this fish completely. You just want it to be like partially cooked because it will finish cooking along with the rice. So our fish is starting to take on some color. Remember, you don't need to cook it fully, and fish cooks really fast. So we're only cooking it partially, just giving it a little bit of color, about 2 minutes per side, of course depending on the thickness of your fish. And I'm just gonna pull this out. Our fish has been fried and it's resting. So now I'm going to fry up half our red onion. I'm just gonna saute this for like about 5 to 10 minutes, get this like a little bit nice and brown. So while our onions are getting a gentle saute, remember the fish odds and ends that I mentioned earlier? Like these little pieces? I'm just gonna cut these up into smaller pieces and then just gonna give it a light fry along with the onions. So this is a completely optional step, right? I mean, if your fish already came in like nice fillets, don't bother with this step. But I mean, I had these pieces lying around and I'm not gonna waste those. So I've started snacking already. So I'm just gonna put this aside at the bottom of our Dutch oven in which we're about to cook the rest of the rice. The onion and the fish mixture is at the very bottom and I have arranged the rice on top. This was 1.5 cups of basmati rice. This is like 1 cup of boiling water that I have. I'm just gonna mix some seafood stock. If you don't have seafood stock, just use chicken stock or you could even use water, but this is better. And I have like half a tablespoon of turmeric in here. Give this all a little mix. Look at that beautiful color. And then I'm going to pour this on top of my rice. I'm gonna let this come up to a slight simmer and then I'm gonna keep my fried fish pieces right on top. So our liquid is simmering. I'm just gonna turn it down to the lowest possible heat setting. Taking great care not to disturb the pattern, I'm just gonna keep these fried fish pieces, arrange them carefully. at that. That was quite a perfect fit. So I'm just gonna cover this, put a lid on, and let it cook for 30 to 35 minutes. Remember, lowest heat.
Taratur. I don't know how to say that, but this goes on the side of our Sayadieh, and it's a simple sauce, no cooking involved. So this is half a cup of tahini. So creamy. Oh no! All right, and to the tahini, we're going to add 3 tablespoons of fresh squeezed lemon juice. It's got to be fresh squeezed, guys. All right, and we have 1 garlic clove that I have minced finely, and about a half teaspoon of salt. And we're just gonna combine this, and that's it, you guys. That's all it is. Okay guys, it's time to make the tabbouleh salad, which is one of my favorite things. So I'm gonna put a 1/4 cup of bulgur wheat into this Pyrex, and I'm gonna add our lemon juice. This is 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, and I'll add our olive oil, which is a 1/4 cup. And now we're gonna let this sit for 15 minutes to let the bulgur absorb the fluids, and then we'll make the rest of the tabbouleh. See you in 15 minutes.
Now let's go ahead and fry the kibbeh. Our oil is nice and hot, and I already put a tester one in there just in order to make sure that the oil is hot. You should hear it sizzling. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put the rest of my kibbeh into the hot oil. Please be careful, don't burn yourself. Try not to crowd the pan. I'm just gonna get like about half of these kibbeh in there. And once it starts to get a little bit golden brown, even browning on all sides. Look at that, guys. This kibbeh is super exciting. And as you can see on the inside, there's a different stuffing. Yummy. I'm gonna sneak a bite. It's really hot.
It's good?
Yeah, I don't even need any other food.
But we have to.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and finish the rest of the salad.
Okay, so our bulgur has been sitting for 15 minutes. Before we finish the tabbouleh, I want to talk to you about the labneh. So traditionally, labneh is made by separating the whey from the curd and yogurt, and then they sprinkle on olive oil and za'atar and sumac. We didn't end up doing that step, so what we have here is some Greek yogurt with the sumac and za'atar and olive oil on it. It's a cheating version, but we're going to use that to dip our kibbeh. Okay. Back to the tabbouleh. We've got our olive oil, lemon juice, bulgur mixture, and I'm going to add in our parsley. This is 1 bunch of parsley. Oh, I hope it fits. We're gonna make it fit. We're gonna make it work. Okay, so flat leaf parsley is best for this, but the flat leaf parsley did not look so good at the grocery store. What we have here is a 1/4 cup of fresh mint leaves that I've kind of chopped up as well. I have 1 vine ripe tomato. Probably use a bigger bowl. That's my warning to you at this point. And 1 green onion, which we've diced up. You can use red onion. You can use whatever you want, really. Well, not really, whatever you want. Can't use like corn or something. It's not tabbouleh, I'm sorry. Okay, so mix this up. Make sure the parsley's nice and coated with the lemon juice and olive oil, and that the bulgur is spread around. We'll just add a little bit of salt and pepper here. Not too much, just taste it. I'm not even gonna give you an amount, just taste it. And that's it. Our tabbouleh salad is ready. Lebanese food.
Have some tabbouleh. I'm super excited about eating the kibbeh. I already snuck a couple of bites, so it was really good. I'm going to dip my kibbeh into the yogurt sauce, the labneh. I like the olive oil on top. This is really good.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Now we know what the fuss is about.
We'll try some tabbouleh.
Nice and fresh, right?
Very fresh and herby. I've always liked tabbouleh. It's a delicious, tangy, tomatoey, herby. So fresh.
I really like it. Shall we try the main course?
Oh yes. Ta-da! What a pretty plate. This rice is so pretty. The turmeric really comes through over here. Very nice. And the fish, it's flaking apart like effortlessly. Wow.
Oh, that is good.
It is delicious. The fish and the rice, somehow it works. It just works together. really well.
What do we do with this sauce? We're supposed to eat this sauce with the fish?
Yeah, with the fish and the rice.
Yeah, I'm gonna scoop a little bit. Would you like
Please
some?
do. Yeah, please.
Tahini, right? Tahini, lemon, olive oil, so good. We also have this baba ganoush. So we made a baba ganoush in our turkey episode. It doesn't look like this, you'll see. But this is a Lebanese baba ganoush, which has tahini in it, and it's clearly been blended really well. There's no chunks of eggplant in there.
Can I try some of that?
Yeah.
Eggplant.
It's actually really tasty.
Oh, wow.
Right? Lebanese food, guys. So
Maybe
good.
we're gonna have to show you how to make Lebanese baba ganoush, because this is absolutely so tasty. It kind of deserves its own segment. So I'm gonna finish the rest of this kibbeh. If you cannot, put it in the fridge. Don't worry about it. Or these also freeze really well. So feel free to freeze if you're making a double batch. Just take it out of the freezer and fry it. Lebanese food in a jiffy. See you all next week.